So welcome to our first part of this series. We got a 4-part series, but we're going to talk about just measuring for a screen door, or you want to order one, either one of our doors, or you want to put one in. I'm just going to tell you basically how to measure it up and some factors to consider. So what you want is a pad, a paper, a pen, pencil, what have you, something to write down. And I've just made a quick illustration of door frame, okay? Just the opening. And if you can imagine this door not being on here, basically that's your opening. So it's pretty simple. You need a tape measure, and I'm just going to say this with the tape measures. If you're trying to measure it and you're not comfortable putting it in the corner and getting your measurement that way, most decent tape measures, if you have a fairly good tape measure, they'll have a certain dimension for the outside edge of the tape measure. So this one in particular is 3 1/4. So what that means is when you take your measurement and you put this against your jamb and you put this against the other side, you get your measurement here, and then you add 3 1/4 to it. So if you're not comfortable, like I said, putting the tape measure into the corner and getting a measurement that way, you can always do that if your tape measure has that marking on it, or you can measure your distance from here to here and add that to your measurement. So basically what you want to do is you want to have 2 measurements, one for your height, okay, left side and right side. You want to do both sides. So when you take your measurement, you're going to go inside your jamb and take your measurement on the inside of the jamb and to the top on the left side, and take your measurement and your opposing measurement on your right side. You want both measurements and write them down. There can be discrepancies, and not every door's jamb is true. So you're gonna have, you might be true, but in a lot of cases you're probably not. So you want both measurements on both sides. They're probably different, at least a little bit. Same thing with your horizontal measurement. You'll want to take it in the top, the middle, and the bottom. You want all 3. When you write those down, what you'll do is you take your lowest measurement. So if you have a low one in the center, or if you have a low one at the bottom, that's the measurement you want to go by. Same thing with your up and down. It's very important because, like I said, it may not be 100% true, and generally they're not. The other thing you want to consider when you're looking at replacing the door is your hardware, how you want to hinge it. The reason I say this is it varies on once you have your dimension, you have to subtract from that. So if you have, depending on what hardware, and we don't deal with the hardware end of it because there's a million different ways of putting hardware on the doors themselves. You can, if you have it mortised in the hinges, or if they're a face mount hinge, or there's a variety. So you have to figure out which way you want to hinge and use hardware for this application. So once you know that, then you know if you need extra space on the inside of your door frame for hardware, because depending on how it's mounted, how it sits, how much area there is, you need a bit of spacing in there. So typically what I tell people is if you have your measurement, and let's say it's 36 inches, that's your outside, your width wise, then you want to subtract a little bit for that to compensate for your hardware and clearance. So normally it's about 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch on the overall dimension. So a very tight door, that'll leave you 1/8 of an inch on each side, for example, by reducing or subtracting 1/4 inch from that width. Your height wise, what you'll want to consider a lot of times, the bottom plate on a jamb is sloped. So you want to make sure you're in, when you measure it on your inside, so you have as close as you can to the jamb or the frame itself. it is sloped a little bit. With thicker doors, it's a little bit more of a factor because it can be cut on a little bit of an angle, but you'll typically want at least 1/4 inch to 3/8 is better on your height. So those are just a few things to consider when you're looking at replacing a door. You can also face mount them so to go over the face jamb, but again, you have to consider the hardware, and that's probably the first step in it is really look at what hardware you want and how you want to hinge the door or mount it, and whether it's inset or a face mount, what have you. But you'll want to factor in the hardware side to it first, and then figure in how much you have to subtract off to get it to fit. I hope this helps you. This is it's just a basic kind of rundown. And like I said, for a tight fitting door, you can subtract about 1/4 inch. For a reasonably tight, you know, up to about 3/8 of an inch it should be adequate space for most door applications. Thanks for watching.